Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, what happened to Jeffrey Epstein in that prison cell 5, almost 6 years ago now? That is the question. The debate now has been reignited because of an interview that was just done, or a couple days ago, recently by FBI Director Kash Patel and his deputy, Dan Bongino. And before I even get into this story, and this is a very important story, because so much revolves around Jeffrey Epstein, his sex trafficking network, his pedophile ring, the desperate efforts by our nation's corrupt elites to try to sweep this massive scandal under the rug, that I have to say this. I was shocked at the interview that Kash and Dan Bongino gave to Maria Bartiromo on Sunday Morning Futures on Fox News. First of all, if you haven't seen it, I urge all of you to go see it. We're going to play some cuts, obviously, but the audio doesn't quite do justice to the concern that many, and I mean many conservatives have over both Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. They looked frightened. They looked like scared little boys. You can tell they're towing the FBI line. They're towing the deep state narrative, and nobody's buying it. And the question now that needs to be asked, and that frankly, my wonderful wife, Dr. Grace Voto asks in her latest column, which is up on WRKO.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. It's right there. Questions on the death of Epstein remain. She discusses the interview and what happened to Epstein on that fateful night. And she's not convinced either that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are telling the truth. In fact, she believes, and I agree with her, that they're probably being threatened and that it worked. Now, let me just tell you exactly what took place. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Now, remember, Bongino was known as a whistleblower when it comes to crimes of the deep state. Both he and Kash Patel, before they entered the FBI, made argument after argument after argument that if you look at the evidence, there is no way in hell that Jeffrey Epstein offed himself. There's no way that he hung himself using, bed sheets from the ceiling of that prison cell. This screamed strangulation and murder. Now they're telling a very different story. President Trump, after he was sworn into office, one of the first executive orders he signed was to launch an investigation into what happened in that prison cell and to answer the question once and for all, did Epstein kill himself? Or, as most of the world believes, and I certainly believe, was he murdered? Well, listen now to Dan Bongino and listen now to Kash Patel, saying that there's no doubt about it in their mind. They say they've seen the full file. They've read the entire file. Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. Roll cut 50, Mike. Okay, apparently we're having technical problems. Basically, both of them said there's no question that he murdered himself, that he committed suicide, that they say you can believe whatever you want, but that they have seen the full file, and that Epstein was a desperate man who committed a desperate act, and that he hung himself in that prison cell. Roll cut 50, Mike.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to get... I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
So, and then Bongino went on to say, I'm here to tell the truth. I'm not here to say what people want me to say. So they're doubling, tripling, quadrupling down. Furthermore, they say the investigation now into Epstein's death is over, that it is officially now a suicide, and that he killed himself, and that's now going to be the official record from the FBI going forward. Now, let me just say this. I don't believe them. As I said on X, and I'm going to repeat it now, I don't believe them. And to be even more candid with all of you, I don't trust them. Again, look at the interview, not just the audio, but the video. They both look nervous. They're both looking away. They look honestly a little bit sheepish. And they look anxious, frankly, even a little bit afraid. And the question that Grace raises in her column, which is the question I think everybody's asking, is, were they threatened? Were they intimidated? Were they told by people within the deep state or higher up, you know how you better rule on this? Now, what is to me incredible is just look at the facts of what we know about the death of Epstein. This is now what the FBI, this is now what Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are now asking us to believe. That Jeffrey Epstein, who was offering money to cellmates so that he would not be killed, who kept telling everybody, if I die, it's not because of a suicide, and literally was paying cellmates to protect him, that this man was suicidal. Furthermore, according to standard prison procedure at the prison cell that he was in, you always have to have a cellmate present, at least one in the cell, exactly to prevent these kinds of things happening, like a suicide. Conveniently, at 5:00 in the evening, his cellmate was removed from the prison cell, leaving Epstein all by himself, which violates all procedure, all protocol. Furthermore, there are 3 cameras that were on Epstein's cell. 3. There were 3 cameras. Miraculously, you want to talk about the mother of all coincidences, okay? Shazam, baby. 2 of the 3 cameras on that night, mysteriously, according to them, malfunctioned. They don't work. They didn't work. The 3rd one, which apparently did work, however, the video was so grainy and so bad, and then the FBI tells us that apparently they lost the bad video, the grainy bad video. So, 3 cameras, none of them worked. Epstein was on constant surveillance. He was watched over by 2, not 1, 2 security guards. But according to the official story, now, both of them apparently fell asleep. Both of them. And then, by the way, they admitted later that they falsified the record, that they had done their regular checks every half an hour. They say, no, we lied. We falsified the record because both of us were snoozing for 2.5 hours. Now, you expect us to believe that 2 security guards fell asleep, that 3 cameras at the same time on that evening malfunctioned, that the cellmate was removed, which goes against all procedure, that a man who was paying cellmates to protect him and was telling everybody around him, if I die, it's not a suicide, committed suicide? Now, furthermore, okay, just to show you how insane this story is that they're trying to sell us, okay? Furthermore, the Epstein family hired one of the world's leading forensic pathologists, Dr. Michael Baden, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, Baden. Dr. Baden said, Baden. Okay, my bad. Dr. Michael Baden. Dr. Baden said he has examined over 1,000 jail suicides, hangings. He said there's no way that Epstein committed suicide. Why? Because of the fractures of the bones in his neck. That this could not have been caused by hanging, but only by, and I'm quoting now Dr. Baden directly, by a homicidal strangulation. In other words, somebody strangled him to death. The bed sheets, when tried, the same bed sheets, same height, same weight, they always tear if you try to hang somebody from a ceiling. Okay, lines are practically loaded. When that happens, I want to go to the phones as soon as possible. 617-266-6868. There's one line open if you want to jump on. Okay, let me just quickly set the table. There is a huge conservative MAGA patriot backlash now against Dan Bongino and Kash Patel over their interview with Maria Bartiromo. And in particular, let me just play the cut one more time. She asked them point blank, did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself? And their answer is, and it's the deep state narrative. It is the FBI line that they have been pushing from the very beginning. Their answer is yes. Now remember, both men were very skeptical that Epstein killed himself, that he committed suicide before they got into the FBI. And so they've done practically a 180. And many people are saying, this is not the Kash Patel that we saw before. This is not the Dan Bongino that we saw before. Now, they're claiming it's because they've seen the whole file. And now that they've seen the whole file, now there's only one conclusion. Epstein was not killed. He was not murdered. He was not strangled. No. This was a suicide. He hung himself with his own bed sheets in his prison cell. Roll cut 50 Mike.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
Mike was saying, yeah, maybe as they were going through the whole file, about 3/4 of the way through, they found a red letter, which read, you keep digging, and the same thing's going to happen to you. They read the whole file. Look, to me, and again, Grace makes this point in her column, but just because she's right. I mean, she's just knocking it out of the park. Her point is, well, who generated the file? Who wrote the file? So what, you're just going to blindly trust what the FBI put in their own file about the death of Epstein? And just stand back for a second, okay? I talked about it in my opening monologue. Forget the cameras malfunctioning. Forget that they removed the cellmate, which goes against all procedure, in his cell that very evening, which is almost unheard of. Forget the fact that not one, but 2 security guards allegedly fell asleep so they couldn't check up on him. Okay? Forget the fact that the world's leading forensic pathologist, leading forensic pathologist said the broken bones in his neck are inconsistent, almost impossible if he hung himself with bed sheets. It's only possible if he was strangled to death. Okay? And that they did tests on someone 6 feet, 185 pounds, which is what Epstein was, with those very same bed sheets. They keep tearing over and over again. The family says it's impossible that he hung himself. It's impossible, okay? Let all of that go. Just let it all go. Jeffrey Epstein is at the center of one of the greatest scandals of our century. He was the most notorious pedophile of our time. He oversaw a pedophile sex trafficking network in which we know he had videos, tapes, documents on hundreds and hundreds of the wealthiest, most powerful people in our country and around the world, engaging in obscene, grotesque sex acts with minors. Okay, this is all undisputable. And he's sitting in that cell. And if this thing goes to trial, and Epstein under oath began to reveal the client list and reveal the people that were there and participated in what were called orgies with underage kids and underage women and underage minors, this would destroy the entire or much of the elite of our country. And yet, notice, Pam Bondi has not released the Epstein files. What is she hiding? What is she afraid of? Now you have the director of the FBI who wants us to take it on blind faith from him that Epstein killed himself against all possible evidence. All evidence to the contrary. That tough guy, Dan Bongino, who's got a big mouth when he had his show and his podcast, but now all of a sudden is now telling us we have to accept and swallow the deep state FBI narrative, hook, line, and sinker? What are they covering up, or what are they afraid of? To me, that's the question. Because honestly, I don't believe them. I don't. And let me go even one step further. I'm very disappointed in Cash and Dan Bongino. Now, I'm still hopeful that their tenure is going to be successful. I'm still hoping that they're going to arrest people and that swamp creatures and corrupt, crooked politicians and Democrats are going to be held accountable. I'm not writing them off, but this is not a good omen. I am very disappointed. What they simply should have said was, the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein is still open, and have an honest, thorough, objective, fair investigation into what really happened. Instead, they cleaned up that scene in the prison cell the second they found his body. And they told us it was a suicide from the beginning. And they have been lying to us ever since. And notice, conveniently now, Epstein cannot speak. Epstein cannot testify. He never had his day in court. Conveniently, we're never going to see these files, I believe. And now, conveniently, the deep state again gets its narrative accepted by the FBI director and his deputy. And so, look, my conclusion is a simple one. The deep state always wins for whatever reason. And you can put any blowhard you want at the top of the FBI or as deputy FBI. 617-266-6868. Now, look, to be fair to Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, maybe they've seen something in the file that changed their mind. I mean, everybody, I'm rushing to a conclusion. Grace is rushing to a conclusion. Many of you are rushing to a conclusion. Were they threatened? Were they intimidated? Are they just, going along to get along, whatever it may be? So, but then to me, the obvious follow-up question from Maria Bartiromo should have been, well, what did you see in the file that changed your mind? Instead, if you listen to the answer, it's, well, I've been to that prison and I've been to the cell and I was a prosecutor and, so they're basically just saying, on credentials. Basically, no, we know and take our word for it. No, we shouldn't take your word for it. Why should I take your word for it? We've been lied to by the FBI over and over and over and over again. And it was the two of you that made careers out of telling us how the FBI lies all the time, how it's corrupt, how the deep state is corrupt. Hell, Kash Patel's book that he was peddling before he became FBI director was government gangsters. And it was documenting all the crimes of the deep state. And by the way, everything he said in that book was true. That's why I was so excited when he was named as the FBI director. And now the guy's turned into a mouse. I want to read this. You can text the Kuhner man, 70470, because I think it hits the nail right on the head. Right on the head. And it gets to the point that I was making just before the break. It's from 781. Jeff, I saw the interview with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. It was disgraceful. How much more proof do we need that it doesn't matter who's in office? The deep state always, in caps, controls the narrative. The answer isn't appointing new blowhards. The answer is less government. You're right, Jeff. Cut the deep state. It's a bit of a longer text, but it goes on to say, fire people, slash their budget, defund them. In other words, get rid of the CIA, get rid of the FBI, get rid of some of these agencies. That's the only way we're ever going to regain control over the deep state. And P.S., Epstein definitely didn't kill himself. Amen, 781. I agree with you, not 100, as I like to say, 1,000%. Epstein did not kill himself. And I'm with you. I think now the deep state is so powerful and so wealthy. It's like a Leviathan. I don't think you can control it anymore. It's not a question now of personnel. You can see it with Kash and Dan Bongino. I think now it's less government. We've got to start cutting the deep state, period. Hacking it, slashing it, reducing its budget, firing people, eliminating agencies. That's the only way. Otherwise, we're just going to keep getting lie after lie after lie. Agree, disagree. Let me ask you the two big questions. Did Epstein kill himself or was he murdered? And number two, do you trust, do you believe Kash Patel and Dan Bongino when they say Epstein killed himself? Angela in Vermont. You're going to kick us off, Angela. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure, Angela.
I have a different theory because I'm like you, quick to judge that everyone is a turncoat. However, what if we look at it from another angle and that Patel and Bongino are put in there to be the cleaners of the agency? And maybe the way to snuff out your enemy is to toe the line and make them think you're complicit in their predetermined narrative. Anyone with a brain knows that Epstein didn't kill himself. However, how do you make people comfortable where they may make mistakes if they think that you agree to the narrative that the FBI has laid out? I think Trump is a strategist. I think he's put people in place specifically to do that. And what if this is just to look squirrel for the bad guys, and now all of us are talking about it as if that's the new narrative?
Well, Angela, look, I hope you're right. I want to believe you're right. A lot of people are saying what you're saying, and it's a very intelligent, well-reasoned, honestly, very articulate, coherent theory. The only reason why I personally don't buy it, and you may be right. I'm not saying I'm right and you're wrong. Quite the contrary. But the reason why I'm not buying it is for two reasons. Number one, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino have now said that they've closed the investigation into the death of Epstein. It's closed. It's done. There are no agents. No one's looking into it. So they've turned the page. And this has created a lot of disappointment among people within the agency. It's created a lot of disappointment within Trump's inner circle. So people very close to Trump are taking it very seriously. They're not acting as if, oh, it's some kind of a ruse or a ploy or, a red herring to, throw people off and let them let their guard down. No, they are pushing very hard that the investigation is done and that the official now verdict from the FBI director and from the deputy is that Epstein committed suicide and that anything else is a crazy conspiracy theory. So that's number one. Number two, there's something going on with Epstein. Pam Bondi now, I don't know how many weeks she's been sitting now on those files. They're not going to release the files. And this is my conclusion. I hope I'm wrong. I want to be wrong. And I want you to react to this, Angela, and give me your reaction. I think the decision now has been made, at least among Bondi, Bongino, and Kash Patel, at a bare minimum, that the people implicated in the Epstein pedophile ring and the videos and the documents and the tapes compromise and implicate so many powerful people that it would pretty much bring down the system. And I don't think they want to bring the system down. I think they just feel it's too much. It'll rock the United States to its very foundations. It will be too destructive, too disruptive. It'll affect both parties. It will take out some of the biggest names in the country and in the world. And we are now in the midst of a Cold War with China. We have a potential nuclear war between Russia and Ukraine. We're trying to desperately rein in Iran's nuclear program. We have a massive border invasion. We have a fifth column from the Democrats and the radical left. I'm just saying this is the argument. I think they're saying we can't afford to take down the entire country and the entire system in terms of its leadership. And so we're just going to have to let this go. I can't read the evidence any other way. No one wants to look at the files. No one wants to release the files. You also now have key witnesses who mysteriously are, quote unquote, committing suicide. Virginia Guffrey. This other one, Caroline Adriano, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. She helped put Ghislaine Maxwell to prison. Apparently now she's mysteriously committed suicide. So what I'm saying is there's too much going on around Epstein that it seems to me they don't want the country to know about it. And I believe it's because they fear the consequences. What say you, Angela?
I'm going to optimistically disagree only because I do want to believe that this is a project to eliminate the deep state. We only have one opportunity to clean everything up, and it has to be done the right way. And I think we've been in an information war for many, many years, and I think that what you see is not always the reality. I think you see that with a lot of stuff that comes out of the news.
You know what? Look, I hope you're right. Honestly, from your lips to God's ears, Angela. 617-266-6868 is the number. Let me ask all of you. Let's throw another very, very quick log on that fire. Angela in Vermont says, I believe this is a ploy, a strategic misdirection on the part of Dan Bongino and Kash Patel. They're saying this. They went on the record. They're doing interviews. They're claiming now that no, forget what we said before. We believe that Jeffrey Epstein murdered himself. He committed suicide. That's the official book. That's the official record. Forgive me. That's the official line, and we're closing the book. But really, they want to let their enemies within the FBI, their enemies within the deep state, to let their guard down. So this is how they're going to catch them, arrest them, and ultimately destroy them, expose them. Do you agree? Do you think this is part of a larger strategic ploy on their part? I honestly think they're saying what they've been told to say. And if you look at the video, they look like two people who are, towing the line. When you've been asked by your boss or told by your boss, this is the party line and this is what you're going to say, period. What you think in private, I don't care. What you say in public is what I care about. And in public, you're going to say it was a suicide and we're moving on. Because you look at them, just their facial expression. First of all, they do look worried. They do look scared. They do look a bit sheepish and slightly almost a bit embarrassed. Again, you judge for yourself. Maybe I'm looking, maybe I'm overdoing this or I'm looking too much into it. But when I saw that, I'm like, nah, they're walking the plank. I think this came from, Pam Bondi. I think this came from their superiors. This is the line, and you're going to toe it. 617-266-6868. Just my opinion. Agree, disagree. I want to read this text from 603. And again, let me just, like I'm in the confessional, let me be brutally honest with all of you. I was not planning on doing this story. I really wasn't. But Monday, Tuesday, over the last couple of days, there was such a backlash to this interview. Kuhner Country, you were emailing me. I got so many emails, messages on Messenger, on the text line. I can't believe Kash Patel and Dan Bongino said this. There was such blowback, such a backlash from so many conservatives, so many MAGA patriots. I'm like, this is a red hot story. I mean, obviously the audience wants to talk about this. And a lot of it was how disappointed so many of you were in both Kash and Dan Bongino. That almost like personally betrayed. Many of you, I don't want to overdo it, but for many of you, it was almost like you felt it was a personal betrayal. And that's why I said, okay, we got to talk about it. I mean, it's a huge issue. So that's the context. Now, this is from 603, because this is the kind of stuff I've been getting over the last 48 to 72 hours. Jeff, let me put it this way. Regardless of whatever it may have been that caused these two men to change course and say what they just said about Epstein's death, the fact is this: Kash Patel and Dan Bongino just earned the biggest collective raised eyebrow in American MAGA history. And judging from the public's response, no one seems to be buying it. Let me just quote one person's response on X because I think it sums up public consensus perfectly. Quote, I don't think Kash Patel and Dan Bongino believe Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. And you know what, Jeff? Neither do I. This is a big hit to people's faith in these two men, and I hope they know it. So, are you losing faith? Are you losing trust in these two men? Are you disappointed in them? Let me throw that in there as well. And ultimately, do you believe them? They say Epstein was not murdered. They say Epstein killed himself. I don't believe them. Do you? Larry in Leominster. Thanks for holding, Larry, and welcome.
Jeff, Epstein has in common with my Christmas decorations? They don't hang themselves.
Larry, you've been following Dan Bongino for many years. You listen to his show, to his podcasts. You're a fan of his. What do you make of him saying this? And what do you make of Kash Patel?
Yeah, that's the difference between us and Democrats, right? They keep calling us the cult. We don't fall in line with everything we're told. We question it. I'm questioning this. I am looking at it from this angle, though. That woman who allegedly got into that near-fatal accident with the bus and then passed away, where did that happen?
I'm sorry, what do you mean by that, Larry?
What country did that happen in?
You broke up on me.
I'm sorry. What country did that happen in?
Wasn't this Australia?
Exactly. She's from here. she fled to Australia because of the death threats, and now it looks like they got her there. How deep does it go? You've got the royal family involved. You've got past presidents involved. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying this is what it's looking like to me, right? They might have gotten that, like you said, that red letter. And they said, hey, we can get to you.
Well, Larry, look, and this is the point that Grace makes in her column as well, which is if they were intimidated, if they were threatened, and now they're backing down, then they're not up for the job. In other words, look, if you're going to be Trump's FBI director and you're going to be Trump's deputy FBI director, you're going to have to clean up the entire FBI and you're going to have the long knives out. The deep state's going to be gunning for you. Now, and Patel should have known that, and Dan Bongino, I know, knew it. So you're going to get death threats. They're not going to lay down. They're not going to just say, okay, come and get us. Here it is. Here's all the evidence. So, either you have forgive me to put it crudely, either you have the cojones, you have the spine, the stones to do what needs to be done, or if not, then respectfully resign and let somebody who can and who will and who does have the stones. But again, Larry, this is my fear. You become FBI director, you become a very wealthy man. Just look at James Comey. He's now worth north of $25 million and climbing and climbing and climbing. Now, I know Bongino did well and Kash Patel, sold his book, but we're talking about a very different level once you become, FBI and deputy FBI director. So I'm starting to ask myself, is the swamp just that powerful? Is it, in other words, it just seems to corrupt everybody? It seduces everybody. It co-ops everybody. It doesn't matter who you put in. You put them in and they just get swallowed up. Larry, am I wrong?
Let's take a tally, right? Let's look at Epstein and Maxwell. Maxwell actually went through trial, got convicted of not essaying all these women, right? But facilitating for others to do it. Yet we don't know a single soul she facilitated to. We're under the impression that Robert and Amy Coney Barrett are compromised. Two of the most powerful in the judiciary are compromised, are in fear of their lives. I'm not making excuses for the two of them. How tough do you have to be? How much is it? I would agree with you on the corruption, but I don't think the seduction is quite the right word. How deep does it go? How powerful are these people that two of the toughest guys can get this crap scared out of them?
Well, that's a very interesting point, Larry. Or, and this is what many people are saying, and again, I'm not trying to disparage either Kash or Dan Bongino. I'm saying this very respectfully, but many on X are saying, are they just, wannabe tough guys? In other words, they play the tough guy. They have they talk a big game and to sell books or, whatever, get ratings and podcasts. But really, when the rubber meets the road, like now, suddenly, they're wusses. They fold like a house of cards. In other words, it's one thing to talk the talk. It's something very different to walk the walk. And I think that's what many people are very disappointed. We all thought if there's one thing we were going to get from Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, it was going to be bare-knuckled, no holds barred. These guys are going to go in guns blazing and consequences be damned. Look, let me put it out there, Larry. The only real tough guy that I see in this entire administration, God is my witness, is Donald Trump. The guy took a bullet in the ear, missed his brain by a millimeter, blood splattered all over his face. He gets up and he's pumping his fist saying, fight, 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 fight. Fight, fight, fight. he didn't know what he had. He knew he was hit by a bullet. Who knows? That could have been his last words. So the only guy I know that walks the walk, not just talk the talk, is him. And notice he's the only one who's not afraid. Everybody else, I mean, it's just incredible. And so I guess, Larry, I got to ask you, maybe these are not the two people we need to be leading the FBI? Maybe we need to get somebody else. Not as flashy, not as articulate. Maybe they don't sell books. Maybe they're not talk show hosts. Maybe a guy like Ken Paxton. We don't need a media poodle. We need a pit bull. We need a Tom Homan type. Okay, frankly, he's another tough guy. I mean, he's getting death threats left, right, and center. This guy doesn't give a damn. He's just come and get me. I don't care. So, Larry, do we need a pit bull at the head of the FBI and as deputy? I'm just curious. Is it maybe it's personnel? They're just not up for the job. What say you? Final word to you, Larry.
You may be right. Now, I don't know much about Kash Patel's background other than, he was a lawyer and did some things and got railroaded in the beginning of the Biden's term and not. But to voluntarily, and this is coming from, put yourself in front of a target, right? You can say what you want now, but that takes some cojones to say, I'm willing to give up my life for the greater good of somebody else's. And he did do Clinton, Bush, and Obama. But 40, 50, no, now we're looking at 60 years, because you got to imagine this goes back to the Kennedy assassination. How entrenched and built up the deep state is. Are we really being realistic to think that it can get undone in 100 days? Like your previous caller, there could be a back strategy to this that we're just not aware of.
I hope so. Yeah, really, Larry, I hope so. I really do. Larry, as always, thank you very much for your service, for your call, for everything. And look, obviously, Dan Bongino was Secret Service. He put his body on the line. I've met him. I mean, he's a big, tough guy. He's a big, strong guy. So, I'm not saying the guy's a coward, far from it. But you're going up against the deep state. And, I thought Larry said it very well. I mean, these are people, and Jeffrey Epstein. So you're talking about, former presidents, foreign leaders, some of the wealthiest, most powerful men in the world. I mean, people are getting suicided, right? There's suicides all over, the mysterious suicides. And, they're in Europe, they're in Australia, they're all over the place. And, and the way they go after you is not just you. They go after your spouse, they go after your family, they go after your parents. There's other ways to intimidate people. So even if you don't care for your own life, you're brave about, sacrificing your own life, it's other people around you that they threaten as well. So anyway, 617. So we don't know the backstory. But, look, I'm disappointed. Let me just say this. I'm disappointed. As I said on X, and I want to repeat it, I'm sick and tired of being lied to. Don't tell me this man killed himself when all the evidence points, everything points that he was murdered. There's no question. There's no question. Agree, disagree. Barbara in Baltimore. Thanks for holding, Barbara, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. And
hi, Barbara.
Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
What a great show. I agree with you about the size and the breadth and what this investigation takes in, what it covers and what it would expose. That I agree with you about, and that is so big that they can't. But you said something, you had a text that had my other point, and that is Donald Trump is everybody's boss. We have to remember, this is not just what Pam Bondi says. Donald Trump doesn't listen to Pam Bondi. You think Donald Trump doesn't know what's in that file? I think it's a strategy. He's always playing chess. It disarms the enemies. People will start relaxing a little bit. We've got a lot going on right now. 2 wars, almost 3, if India and Pakistan don't stop. There's so many things that we need to fix in this country, so much more important than Jeffrey Epstein right now. So I have faith in President Trump. I was in Butler. You mentioned it. I was behind him, standing there with my pink phone because I thought it was firecrackers. And I'm telling you, President Trump knows what he's doing, and he's everybody's boss. He's telling them what they need to do. And this is his strategy. And that's why I say take a break and let it play out, because it's not going to go away. And I don't know about Amy Coney Barrett being compromised by Epstein, but John Roberts, that's a real possibility. Can you imagine a scandal involving him coming out right now at this time with the Democrats acting like lunatics in the streets? And the number of Republicans who I think are on that list. It would destroy a lot of things right now. But there will come a time, and I think it will be during President Trump's term, and it'll be when he knows the time it is right. That's just what I think.
Barbara, Barbara, look, a lot of people are saying what you're saying, except you have the guts to say it. So no question about it. No, Barbara, I don't want to jump the gun because I was going to get to this a little bit later in the show. But since you mentioned it, I just at least want to briefly touch on it because you mentioned how you were in Butler and you were there when the president was shot. The other shocking thing that Bongino said, this is why the backlash is so ferocious, is he then was asked a follow-up question about the investigation into what happened July 13 in Butler, Pennsylvania, and the assassin, Thomas Crooks. And we know the breakdown in the Secret Service. We know how sloppy the security was. People are saying there must have been at least some people on the inside who, if they didn't help him, deliberately turned a blind eye. Dan Bongino came out and said, no, that's not true. Quote unquote, there's no there. And people were just shocked. And he said, again, we're closing the investigation. This was the action of a lone shooter, one lone gunman. There was nothing else wrong with the Secret Service on that day. And he got no help. And there was no breakdown. There was nobody complicit. And we're moving on. So he's now also ordered, he and Kash Patel have now ordered an end to the investigation of what happened in Butler. And now they're telling us now that Thomas Crooks will be like the assassination of John F. Kennedy, like Lee Harvey Oswald. The official narrative, the official line is it was one lone gunman, period, full stop, and nothing else to see. Move on. Your reaction?
I was on the ground in Butler Thursday night before this happened. I spent all day Friday. I was a volunteer, and I was standing on the ground, right in that middle bleacher. And I'm telling you, I've been to about 5 Trump rallies. Those were not Secret Service police there. They were wearing the green DHS, clearly DHS, on their vests. I think you're right about the laxness, but I think I have to trust President Trump. I just do. And there's strategy in everything that he does, because I'm with you as far as Butler. There were no dogs. This is the first time I see no dogs at a rally. They didn't have enough screening, the metal detectors. The crowd was so big, so many people. That's why I had to stand up. The bleachers, I had a red band on my arm. Volunteers, we were supposed to be in that. We had the choice. middle bleacher. I planned to be up top with Maryland for Trump flag. I probably might have been the first one shot if it had happened. And I was only not there because it was so hot that day. But in any event, this is not over. I trust President Trump so much, especially since that day.
Oh, I agree. No, Barbara, look, I hope not. I hope it's not over. 617-266-6868 if you want to be part of the show. Okay, lines are jammed, but before we go to the blazing phone lines, you know what this is? Wednesday at this time, it's Truth or Troll.
And now, America's favorite game show, where you get to decide on the Kuhner Report. This is Truth or Troll.
Today's entry for Truth or Troll comes from President Trump speaking in the Oval Office about the Golden Dome and what other country wants to be a part of it.
Canada has called us and they want to be a part of it. So we'll be talking to them. They want to have protection also. So as usual, we help Canada do the best we can.
They come crawling back, Jeff.
Mike, I gotta tell you, Trump's the best. I gotta say it, man. He's just the absolute best. Look, I don't think he's trolling. I think he's serious. I think the Canadians do want to get in under that Golden Dome, our missile defense shield. And if I'm Trump, I turn around and say 25%.
So when he says per usual, does he mean to slight them? What do you think?
Per usual, here they are, freeloading off of us, but we're the bad guy. Great job, Mike. Okay, let me ask you, is President Trump, is he trolling the Canadians? Is he needling them a little bit? Or is he just saying the truth? There they are with their hand out saying, could you give us that protection for free, please? Can you protect us from all the missiles and the bombs around the world, please? Truth or troll, I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER, A, troll, B, true, sorry, A, truth, B, troll, forgive me. Was Trump saying the truth? That, Canada is, they want a piece of the action, for free, as usual. Or do you think he's just needling the Canadians a little bit? A, truth, B, troll. You can go to wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner. And as always, you can vote via X, my handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, Kuhn as in national ER. John in Dunstable. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for taking the call. Jeff, they've been pushing child sex, gay sex on the country and the world for the last 4 years. Epstein's girlfriend knows everything, Jeff. She should be given immunity, taken out of prison, and do a tell-all. She's the one that brought all the girls in. She knows everybody that went there, and she could tell us all. Now, if Kash Patel and Bongino saw something in the files, why aren't they showing it, Jeff? Why aren't they showing the people what they saw in the FBI files that proves that he killed himself? There's no way that they can tell that guy offed himself. There's no way, Jeff. They weren't there. I mean, they can put down whatever they want. They can say whatever they want. Epstein, it's not his first time that he was in the can, Jeff. He was in the can before, and it's not like he was a scared little camper out in the middle of the woods, not knowing if the boogeyman was going to get him. So I believe, Jeff, that they're corrupt. I'll tell you, Jeff, I've said it to you before. I think it's too far gone, Jeff. I really don't think anything's going to happen. I mean, Bondi never, she promised to show us the Epstein files. You get the Kennedys, they don't want to know who really shot, their family member. I mean, this is sick, Jeff. This is sick. And the only way, you talked a little bit about, we want to clean the country up. We were trying to clean the country up with Doge. You don't even hear anything about it anymore, Jeff, because the people that would have saved money for themselves by cleaning the waste and the fraud up were protesting on the street. That just shows you the mentality of a lot of people in this country. And I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted with the government, and we are at war with the government. And I've said it before to you, Jeff, and I'm telling you again, there's only one way this is being taken down, and that's if the people take it down, because it's frightening how sick these people are, Jeff.
Well, John, I think you nailed it. And to me, the operative word is sick. And Epstein was a sick, twisted, evil, to me, diabolical, demonic man. And it's obvious he oversaw the most infamous pedophile ring, maybe in human history. Okay. Certainly in the 21st century. That there's no question. And this implicated not, one or two or three, hundreds of the wealthiest, most powerful people in the United States and around the world. That there's no question about it. And, you nailed it, John. We're never going to get the truth. Ghislaine Maxwell is sitting in prison. She hasn't coughed up one name. And I think it's obvious. She knows she coughs up one name, she's dead. She's going to be, quote unquote, suicided. She'll be, quote, found hanging from her cell. And they'll have removed the cellmate conveniently that evening. And the cameras are mysteriously all not going to work. And the two security guards are going to be falling asleep. I mean, it's going to be the same shtick. And then they'll come out and say, oh, I looked at the file. No, she killed herself. I mean, it's the same garbage. So that's why she hasn't revealed a single name. Now, just to show you, look, this is the problem I have. James Comey's daughter, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Siding, Roofing, and Windows. Do you trust Kash Patel? I mean, we can throw in Dan Bongino as well, since he's his deputy, but let's just keep it very simple. Do you, after what he just said, both about the suicide of Jeffrey Epstein, that he killed himself, and that he says it's 1,000%, and at least in public, they're saying they're closing the investigation, and that if you say he was murdered, it's a crazy conspiracy theory. So do you and now that they're saying Butler, July 13, the assassination attempt in Butler on Trump, that there's no there. That there was nobody on the inside, nobody turned a blind eye, nobody was working with Thomas Crooks, they found no serious breakdown in security that leads them to question how Thomas Crooks so easily was able to get, fire off 8 shots and get to 450 feet of the president on a roof. That there's there's nothing to see there. There's no there. And so my question to you, after these two shocking statements and conclusions, and by the way, all reinforced and okayed by Dan Bongino. So it's Dan and Kash are now they're closing ranks. But let's just stick to Kash Patel because he's the top guy. He's the FBI director. Do you still trust, or do you trust Kash Patel? A, yes. B, no. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. The answer for me is no. I don't believe them. And if I don't believe you, I don't trust you. And to me, trust is everything. But that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in National ER. As always, you can vote via X, one word, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in National ER. And let me just throw one other quick log on the fire. If you don't trust Kash Patel, and I guess by extension, you no longer trust Dan Bongino, is it time for new leadership? Is it time for them to resign and step down? Or are you still willing to give them a chance? 617-266-6868. Denise in Beverly. Thanks for holding, Denise, and welcome.
Jeff, how you been?
Very good. How are you, Denise?
Oh, my God. Jeff, I just have to say this. I have a couple of things I want to say. First of all, I can't, when my son, my son's been to that prison, okay? He's been there. And when he heard that Kash Patel and Bongino said that he didn't kill himself, well, he believe me, he did kill himself. My son said that prison it is so much corruption that the drugs are more accessible there, and he said they're more accessible than on the street. The female correctional officers are soliciting sex, bringing drugs in. All the correctional officers that work there, they're from the local areas in New York, from the projects from Brooklyn, and they're just guys from the hood that are fortunate and stayed out of trouble. Now, he told me that the bunk beds are so low, they're so low each other. You know what I mean? Like the first bunk bed, and Epstein was over 6 feet tall. There's no way he could have hung himself on that bed post. There's no way his knees would have just hung on the floor. Someone had to help him hang himself. My son actually found someone hanging in his cell at one place, and both his cellie next door found him in his cell, and those bunk beds are so low to the ground that there's no way that he could have hung himself. I mean, you know what I mean?
Well, Denise, it's funny you should mention that, because that's exactly what the Epstein family's saying. They're saying we've done it over and over and over again, and exactly what you said, the beds are too low. Epstein was, 6 feet, maybe even a little bit more than 6 feet. They said it's impossible. Then, he was 185 pounds. They said, well, we tried it with the exact same bed sheets. The bed sheets tear. So, and look, to me, you can leave, all of that it's important. But to me, this is the hammer. This is, to me, the bombshell, is when you have one of the world's leading forensic pathologists who has done, 1,000 prison hangings, come out and say, look, I'm telling you, I've never seen this in my life. The bones that were broken in his neck could not be caused. It's medically, physically impossible to be caused by a hanging. You can only break those bones. He called it homicidal strangulation, i.e. somebody strangled him, murdered him. So look, that's what I mean. So when they say, well, I've looked at the whole file. Okay, well, what did the file say? What did the file disclose and say that made you change your mind? They don't want to say it. Furthermore, I can read a file. You can read a file. To me, the question is, who wrote the file? Who generated the file? Just because a file says something doesn't mean you just take it at face value. Look, again, I don't want to keep plugging Grace's column, and really, it's an outstanding column. Really, I'm urging all of you, go to wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn, as in National ER. She lays it out in less than 700 words. I mean, beautifully. Questions on death of Epstein remain. She lays it all out. And and her point is, why did we cheer Kash Patel being nominated and appointed as FBI director and Dan Bongino as his deputy? Because we thought these are people who think for themselves, who have critical thinking, who are independent, patriotic, brave, courageous. I'm not saying they're not. I'm saying that we thought they had a certain character and skill set that if they got a bull, and I almost said it, a bull crap file, okay, a Bravo Sierra, a BS file, they'd be, no, I'm not buying it. I don't care what it says in here. It just doesn't make sense. And instead, for whatever reason, now many of you are saying, Jeff, it's a distraction. It's a ploy. They really are going to continue to look into this. They're just trying to get everybody to get to lower their guard, put their guard down. I hope so. But for whatever reason, they have now decided to publicly close the investigation and to now claim on the record that the initial deep state FBI narrative was true, that Epstein committed suicide, which frankly almost nobody believes. And Denise, what many people are saying on social media and in the text line and in my emails, Jeff, I don't even think Kash Patel and Dan Bongino believe Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. They go, I don't even think they believe their own words. So either they're lying to try to trap somebody, or they were told to lie, and now they're walking the plank. Either way, I think their credibility has been damaged. Final word to you, Denise.
I think they should do something about this. I don't believe this about Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. I thought they were honest people and everything. There's no way in hell that he killed himself. There's no way. I know there's no way. No way. Everything that I've been to with these prison stuff and everything with my son before, he's out now, he's doing great. But I'll tell you something, there's no way he killed himself.
Well, and Denise, you're right. And on top of that, I mean, we could keep going and going, but he's going around telling everybody and his grandmother, I'm talking Epstein now, saying, if I die, it wasn't a suicide. And he's literally, out of his own account, he's paying cellmates. He's like, give me your account number. And he's dropping tons of cash saying, please protect me. Please keep your eyes on me the whole time. Please don't leave me alone. So does this look to you like a guy that wants to commit suicide?
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to get... I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
So that was FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino. They were interviewed by Maria Bartiromo. It aired on Sunday on Fox. They're saying Jeffrey Epstein, it was a suicide. Now, you know my position. I don't believe them. I don't know why they're not telling us the truth, but for whatever reason, they're not telling us the truth. But that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Jeff Kuhner here on the great WRKO. This is from Grams on Messenger. Jeff, I agree with those that say it's a distraction. This is outside of their character. Dan Bongino wouldn't betray us. I think he's just trying to make them feel comfortable so they think they're not investigating them so they can get all of the information. I truly hope you're right, Gramps. Again, as I like to say, from your lips to God's ears. So hopefully this is just a ruse whereby, we're not investigating. The case is closed. Of course, he killed himself. Sure. So the FBI thinks, okay, we got him. Hoo-hoo. The deep state says, we snookered him. Okay, let's move on. And they're going to spring a trap. I hope you're right. Something tells me I don't think so. I look at them and I'm like, they're scared. You can see it in their face. You can see it in their eyes. They're towing the line and they're parroting the deep state narrative. and they look to me like they've been threatened. I don't have any inside information. I'm just speaking from the gut. I could be wrong, just my opinion. But I think on this one, I think they blinked. But that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Jeff in the great state of Ohio. Thanks for holding, Jeff, and welcome.
A quick couple suggestions. I'm not running your show, but if you get Mike to play like John Lennon, It's a Strange Day Indeed, Mama soundtrack. And I would love for you to get Lauren Loomer on for an interview. She is on fire. And I mean,
Jeff, I got to say, I promise I'll let you finish everything you want to say. I got to say, Laura Loomer lately, I agree with you. She has been on target again and again and again. I agree with you. Fire, fire, fire. No, I'd like to get her on, Jeff. Now again, it's with her, at least in the past, it's hit or miss. Sometimes she's on, sometimes you're like, woo, where did that go? Where did that come from? But I agree with you. Lately, she's been killing it. I mean, one after another. So yeah, I think she'd be a great guest, a great interview, and I'll definitely look into it. Jeff, please keep going.
Okay, as far as with the interview, I don't see them put their credibility on national TV in order to discredit something like that when they could have just kept their mouth shut to continue the investigation. They didn't need to do that. There's a reason for it. And when I get done talking to you, I'm going to go in and pull up all the old podcasts and stuff from not Case Patel, but Don Bongino. He was always talking about, I've got people in the service who are telling me exactly who did this, who did that, and we know whose fingerprint was on the bag of cocaine, and they better come clean because I know who did it and all this. So he's got a lot of explaining to do. Now, Case, I bought his book when it first came out, and I'm going to read that again tonight with fresh set of eyes, and then I'll draw my conclusion. But no, that stinks to high heaven. And you talk about the major censorship of the world. This government has treated us like crap, and we pay the bill. So I'll leave it at that, Jeff, and you have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeff. I appreciate it. No, look, we've created a monster, a Frankenstein's monster. That's what we've done. Now, it didn't happen overnight. Larry and Lemonster said, the Kennedy assassination was in 1963. But this deep state, whatever you want to call it, the shadow government, you can go on. But what I mean is the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, this powerful intelligence network. It's a leviathan. And we have spent so much money on it, and we have so built it up. It's now on the verge of devouring us. And as I said, I read the text earlier, and it's like they always win. Their narrative always ends up dominating no matter who tries to control them. And I think the answer is less government. I agree. It's time to start either completely reforming these agencies or getting rid of them. Cut, 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 cut. Fire, 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 fire. Because it's incredible. And look, they're very dangerous. People are always dying around them. Here, I got to give Trump credit. He came out, what was this, a couple days ago, and he said, notice how many people died of suicide around the Clintons. And it went on, dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of people, all of whom had potentially very damaging, incriminating evidence. And Trump was basically saying, connect the dots. It's impossible that many people who were that close to the Clintons, who could send them to jail, all of them committed suicide? All of them? And the deep state is in the back pocket of the Clintons and the Bidens and the Obamas. I mean, there's no question. So, again, you have to ask the question. Were they intimidated? Were they threatened? Are they being blackmailed? Because the Kash Patel and the Dan Bongino that I'm seeing now is not, and this is not an original point. This is what's caused such a backlash on social media. They're like, don't you realize you're literally reversing everything you've been saying for I don't know how many years now? You have inside information. You know people. This was not a suicide. This could never have been a suicide. And all of a sudden now, you guys are saying the exact opposite? Something is going on. Something is rotten in Denmark, as Shakespeare famously said. This does not pass the smell test. Tina in Townsend. Thanks for holding, Tina, and welcome.
Love you. Love your show.
Thank you, Tina.
I have to say, Barbara is my absolute favorite caller.
She's a great caller.
You have so many great callers. I wish I could have coffee with that lady. She is the best. I have to agree with her. I always go back to whenever stuff happens, trust Trump. He is in charge. I guess my question, Jeff, is spending the time on wondering why, and I don't even like saying his name, Jeffrey Epstein. I don't even know why we have to even talk about him. I feel like whether he killed himself or whether or somebody killed him or he committed suicide, I don't really care. What I care about, Jeff, is give me the names, Pam Bondi. Give us the names and prosecute the sexual predators. That is what's important, not whether he killed himself. I understand that there's questions about Dan and Patel. I don't really know, but there are two options, right? They're lying because they're threatened, and I don't know anything about Patel, but as far as what I've known from Dan Bongino, I don't know him personally, but listening to his radio show, the motive for him to lie, if he is lying, then his family is being threatened. He would take a bullet for anyone, that man. But how about if we put ourselves in maybe their position, if we think they're not being honest? What if this deep state, which, let's face it, undoing this deep state corruption and the evil, it's going to take more than 100 days. We have no idea. We're not in there. And so to put a Dan Bongino and call him untrustworthy or lying, if he is, and we find out that this man's family was threatened, you know what, Jeff? That's a pass. That's a pass to me. And the other thing is, why do an interview with Maria Bartiromo, who I also love, and lie? And I just, there's a lot of questions, but I guess the bottom line for me, Jeff, is who cares about Jeffrey Epstein? He was a predator. He was a horrible, horrible human being. And he went to jail, and whether he was killed or he committed suicide, I want to know who the people were that did the sexual predator. You know, who are the predators? Let's put them in jail.
Well, no, Tina, you're right. I mean, that's the look. You're right. I mean, personally, I don't care about Jeffrey Epstein. I hope the guy rots in hell. To me, I don't care. I mean, in a sense, objectively, all right, you did us a favor. Good. But this is why it's important, Tina. The pedophile ring that he was with, that he led, and that he was using to blackmail people consists of the most powerful people in our country and in the world. We have a right to know who those people were. And the fact that Epstein, whether he was murdered, this is the key. If he was murdered, that means he was murdered on their behalf to protect their names and their secrets and their crimes. And that's what they're trying to cover up. That's why this is so shocking. We all thought, look, I was the one that kept saying 1-800-CASH. I couldn't wait for this guy to be officially appointed as FBI director, confirmed. He was nominated. I was waiting. Come on. Because the way Kash Patel was talking for years, and his book, Government Gangsters, is a phenomenal book. It's almost a roadmap on how to dismantle the deep state. And I said, no, heads are going to roll. People are going to go to jail. I mean, this is going to be their worst nightmare. And then to see him come around and do a complete 180 after he's been telling us for years, and Dan Bongino has been telling us for years, rightly, that Jeffrey Epstein was murdered. And he was murdered because they were covering up his crimes and the crimes of those that he was blackmailing and that he was a part of, his cabal. That, to me, is the heart of the issue. And look, this is how insidious it is, just to understand, I believe they've compromised Chief Justice John Roberts. There may be more on the Supreme Court, but they have the Chief Justice now. He's being blackmailed. I believe they have Bill Gates. I believe they have Jeff Bezos. I believe they have George Soros. I believe they have Bill Clinton. I believe they even have Hillary Clinton. I mean, I could go on and on. I mean, I'm just giving you name after name after name. In other words, they control the Democratic Party. They probably control the entire Republican Party. They control the media. The rumors out there about some of the media people that went to Epstein's Island and what they were caught doing. It's a who's who. It's a who's who. FBI directors, CIA directors, never mind world leaders, Hollywood superstars. They say, well, who cares about Hollywood? They're the big donors behind the Democratic Party. And famous directors. That's why they're mainstreaming pedophilia. That's why they keep pushing and pushing that it's okay to have sex with children. Because they're pedophiles themselves. What I'm saying is, you break open this scandal and you break open this pedophile network. I'm telling you, I think the entire quote unquote elite of our country comes crashing down. And maybe that's what they're afraid of. Maybe they don't want to see the whole country burn. I don't know. But we were promised transparency and accountability. And look, we're not going to see the Epstein tapes, the Epstein files. We're not going to see them. Like, we're just not. It's obvious now to me, for whatever reason, Pam Bondi is refusing to release them. They're already being redacted. Word has already come out that many of the files have been destroyed, that Pam Bondi essentially sat back and allowed them to be destroyed. By the way, Kash Patel sat back and allowed them to be destroyed. So we're never going to find out the truth. I hope I'm wrong, but that's what it seems like to me. And I'm just sick and tired. It's only going to get worse. None of this ends if we don't break this thing wide open. So to me, that's why this is so important. And I'm going to get to this in about half an hour. Now they're both telling us that July 13, Butler, Pennsylvania, I'll never forget it till the day I die. I thought, when I saw that story, I called Mike, I called Sandy, I said, we got to go live on the air now. Because if President Trump dies on his way to the hospital, I think we have a civil war. Let me be brutally honest with you, Tina. Had Thomas Crooks 1 millimeter blown out Trump's brains and he died that day instead of that miraculous survival, I honestly believe we wouldn't have a country anymore. This would go to the streets. This would have literally torn the country apart. Now they're telling us that this was a lone wolf who just managed to do aerial drone footage surveillance on the day of the rally, and the Secret Service and nobody noticed the thing. And that even though you had people in the crowd telling Secret Service, shoot her on the roof, they still allowed Trump to take the stage. He was 450 feet away from the president with a Secret Service sniper 40 feet away from him. By the way, he had a car full of explosives nearby as well. And all of this took place under the nose of the Secret Service. And according to them, there's no there. They're like, no, there's no, a Secret Service wasn't implicated in this. There wasn't one agent who, and by the way, to this day, they refuse to tell us, who is Thomas Crooks? What was his ideology? What was his motivation? Who was he communicating with? He must have been talking to somebody. Well, how about his social media? What was he saying on the internet? Nothing. It's all been buried. All of it. And now I'll play you the cut. He's like, there's no there. He goes, we've shut down the entire investigation. There's nothing there. And people are in utter disbelief. So I fear you may be right. I think they're threatening that's what Grace thinks. I'll have her on at 9 o'clock. She'll tell, you can hear it from her. She says, no, they're threatening their families. Now, to be fair, Tina, okay? I've said this before and I'll say it again. I'm not a tough guy. I never claimed to be a tough guy. And let me go even further than this. I've met Don Bongino a couple times. He's much tougher than I am. Seriously. Physically, he would take me in 2 seconds. He put his life and his body on the line for 3 presidents. I've never put my body on the line for anybody. So when it comes to the tough guy category, I couldn't lick his boots. Okay? Just to be fair and honest with all of you. I've said this before. I get death threats all the time. It doesn't bother me. But if I feared that someone would credibly go after my wonderful wife and my 2 children who I adore, that would really bother me. If they came to me in private with pictures, here's your son at school, here's your daughter at the playground, here's your wife at the local Starbucks, we can take her out anytime. We can take your kids out anytime. You still want to F around with us? You're still going to tell me that Epstein was murdered? You're still what? Still going to go on about the Secret Service and what happened in Butler? Or are you going to start towing the line? Now, I'm telling you, Tina, I know me. I would resign. I would resign. I wouldn't stay on the job. I would resign. I would never lie like that. If they're doing that, then they should not be lying. It's not worth it. And I'll tell you why. I met a priest. I knew this priest, and it was several years ago, and we had a discussion. And I asked him, I said, Father, I'm just curious, from a theological point of view, what is a greater sin? A public sin or a private sin? For example, if someone cheats on his spouse or her spouse, what's worse? That, which is adultery, we're very serious, or say, corruption, or turning a blind eye to corruption, or enabling corruption. And he said, there's no question, a public sin is much worse than a private sin. Why? Because a private sin, you're sinning against one person, however horrible and abominable it is. But if you do a public sin, you're sinning against countless people. He goes, I'm telling you, it's a mortal sin. And this was years ago, that always stuck with me. I'm not going to hell for anybody. And so, to be honest, if they blackmailed me, I'm out. I'm out. I'll come out and say whatever I got to say, but I'm like, I'm done. I'm not going to stay. So if they are being blackmailed, with all due respect, hand in your resignation. But if you continue lying on their behalf, then you become complicit. So anyway, we'll see what's going to happen. I hope they have a master plan. I hope they're trying to outfox their enemies. But this is where I stand. Final word to you, Tina.
Thanks, Jeff. All valid what you said. I get it. I just feel like the bottom line for me is I'm going to trust Trump because he cannot be in the dark on this. And these guys are not part of the deep state. I truly believe, whether they've made mistakes, whatever's going on, I'm not in there. I don't know. And I'm going to trust. I'm going to stick with Barbara. It's like you said, it may be a ruse, but whatever it is, they are.
Oh, I hear you. They're patriots. Both of them are patriots. I think there's no question. 617-266-6868 if you want to be part of the show. Best audience in the business. I know, I keep saying it. I know. You can say, Jeff, how many times are you going to repeat yourself like a broken record? It's true. I don't know what else to tell you. This is from Lara on Messenger, and she makes a really good point. Jeff, have we considered that Jeffrey Epstein's client list is quote-unquote mutually assured destruction? I remember hearing a while back that Jeffrey Epstein was an asset for both the CIA and the Mossad. The deep state is likely made up of more than just agents in the United States, but also I do think that there are still too many high-ranking officials in the United States who would be taken out by that client list. President Trump may be afraid of a huge public backlash, or he may start using the intelligence himself. If his administration starts encountering far fewer roadblocks, I'll be suspicious. But I'm not buying that Epstein killed himself, and I'm not buying that some lone idiot got by police and Secret Service to take a shot at the president based on what we've learned thus far. I'm with you all the way, Lara. I'm with you all the way. Let me just go one more. This is from Jerome, who makes really a phenomenal point. Jeff, if Dan Bongino was still on the radio, if he was still on the air, he would be screaming BS about this report about Epstein. Yes. That's why everybody's like, oh, what? That's why it's generated such a backlash on social media among conservatives and among MAGA. They're like, but no, if you weren't the deputy and Kash Patel and another deputy came out and said this, you would be, and rightfully, you'd be raking him over the coals on his show. He'd be doing what I'm doing now. He'd be like, what, A, what are you guys smoking? Or B, who the hell is threatening you? You don't believe what you're saying. So, again, something is up, and hopefully we'll find out soon. Agree, disagree? Rob in Dedham. Thanks for holding, Rob, and welcome.
Jeff.
Rob.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Rob. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. Are you sitting down?
I'm sorry, what, Rob?
Are you sitting down?
Yes. Go ahead, Rob. Go ahead.
I don't care what Bongino says or Patel says. I care about my roommate in college who represented Epstein, Maxwell, the Proud Boys, Webb Hubbell, Paul Manafort, what he said when I asked him. He killed himself, period.
He killed himself?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Period.
Okay, now why? Why would...
I couldn't get into it with him because Epstein had my buddy had to return the $25,000 retainer back to his estate. He's also working with Maxwell down in Florida now. And I don't get too much into it with him. He's my college roommate when I went to school up in New Hampshire, okay? And this guy's been at this a while. He handles a lot of heavy hitters, okay? Heavy hitters. And what he does is he had all the top Proud Boys, by the way, all of them, from top to bottom, the main guys. And what he does is the following. Once you get convicted, he takes over and gets you into a soft landing, if possible, okay? So when I asked him, I've known this guy for a long, long time. He looked at me, he said, so what's up? And he said, he killed himself, period, end of story. Didn't even blink, didn't hesitate, that was it.
Rob, did he give any elaboration? Did he give any explanation? Or did he just say that and that's it?
That's it, that's all he could say to me. And I didn't want to know anymore. He didn't even have Jeff. He didn't hesitate. You knew when he said it. You said, okay, that's it. He deals with these people all the time. He also dealt with the college people. The ones all in California. He had all those people too. This guy has done a lot of work for a lot of heavy hitters. Could be mafia. Could be everybody. But Epstein was his client. And Maxwell. He had been in touch with her for a while. She's down in Florida, and that was it. That was it. Nothing else.
So, Rob, I take it you believe your friend. You think he did kill himself?
Absolutely. This guy's solid. I've known this guy I'm 69, so I've known him since I was 18.
Now, Rob...
And I've been in touch with him. I've been in touch with him, too, all the time.
Just to play devil's advocate, what about the cameras not working conveniently? the cellmate being removed from his cell that very evening, which goes against all procedure, the 2 security guards falling asleep and not doing their routine checkup every half hour. I could go on and on. The forensic pathologist saying the breaks in his neck are inconsistent with hanging, could only be from strangulation. What say you to all of that, Rob?
Don't know unless I wish I could read the report. But a lot of these people, who knows what they're talking about? The guy, Bodden there, whatever his name is, the pathologist. Don't tell me he's never been wrong before. I don't know. I don't want to play that game because I'm not an expert at it. All I know is what a very close friend of mine said. He killed himself, period. End of story.
Interesting. Really interesting. Rob, as always, thank you very much for that call. Do I have time to go to Heather in Rockland? No. Okay. Heather, hang on. All right. I want to ask all of you. You just heard it from Rob. He's saying, look, say what you want. Bongino and Kash Patel are telling the truth. You may not want to hear it. You may not like it. 617-266-6868 is the number. I just want to read very quickly. We're going to go to Heather, obviously, in Rockland. But Eric makes a really good point. Very interesting, and I think very true. Jeff, I don't buy the bit from the lawyer. If the guy is representing Ghislaine Maxwell currently, he is going to go along with the narrative of Epstein's suicide because he cannot jeopardize his client. Now, that's an interesting point. And then Eric goes on to say, Jeff, Epstein had too much of an ego to ever kill himself, period. That is true. I mean, he was a billionaire who got his billions from blackmailing the most powerful people in the world. And he considered himself, and he openly said this, he's one of the masters of the universe. He thought he was untouchable. He thought everybody had to bend the knee to him. He had the royal family in his back pocket. He had ties to Mossad. He clearly had ties to the CIA. Many in Congress believe, and I know Comer is convinced of this, James Comer, the House Oversight Chairman, that Epstein, in many ways, was working with the CIA and potentially Mossad to blackmail people our government wanted blackmailed, and to use that over them so they could control them. So Epstein he had powerful enemies, obviously, but he also had very powerful friends. And he thought he walked on water. I don't have time now because the lines are jammed and I really want to go to the phones. When he is released from prison, and remember, he pled guilty years ago to having sex with an underage, for soliciting sex with an underage minor. It was a girl, a prostitute, underage. So everybody knew that he was a pedophile. Everybody knew he went after underage girls. He pled guilty to it. That's why he served time in prison. He comes back to his big mansion in New York, and it was a who's who of the media. The names there, it's the most powerful names in the entire Democrat media complex. And they threw him one hell of a welcome home party. It was the mother of all bashes. They were there to kiss his ring. And it wasn't just because he had a lot of money. And it's not just because he got them free tickets to the Met. It's because he had a lot of them on tape. He owned them. And he was blackmailing them and he was controlling them. So a guy like that, an ego like his, that he would just, put a bed sheet around his neck, even if he could, physically do it, and kill himself that way, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I just don't. And then you add to the fact that he's literally paying cellmates to stay with him and to watch over him. He's giving, he's shelling out big chunks of cash, and he's telling everybody, if I die, it's not a suicide. this doesn't look to me like a guy who's suicidal. But again, that's me. Heather in Rockland. Thanks for holding, Heather, and welcome.
Jeffrey, thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure, Heather.
Appreciate it. I am on. I with some of your other callers like Larry and Barbara. Those are my two favorite callers, by the way. I'm on this. What they believe. I think this is a strategy. I really wish that they didn't do that interview. I really wish they just was like not do that interview, because I think it would have been better if we just kept thinking and they not done the interview, and that have been that. I think this is a strategy. I think we need to give them more time. I think it's still not enough time, and I think that by giving them more time, I think I feel like it's coming from Trump, and I think that this is like a chess game, part of the chess game that Trump's playing. And I think they're going along with it. I can't imagine Dan Bongino, this is his reputation. So, I mean, we got to, think about, like, even after he's done with the FBI, like, his future. I mean, he built a good reputation in the media. I can't imagine that he would tarnish it, on purpose. So I really think that we need to give them more time. The whole, the administration and see what plays out. But I don't think that that Epstein committed suicide. I clearly think that he definitely was murdered, but I think there's more to this going on than what meets the eye, and I just really wish that they didn't do that interview.
Heather, let me play a cut, and I want to get your reaction, because you're saying I wish he didn't do the interview. He then is asked by Maria Bartiromo about the Trump assassination and the investigation into the Trump assassination on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania. And listen to what Bongino now says. Roll cut 49. Mike.
Are we going to be surprised at what you learned?
You know what, Maria? Cash is not kidding. We've been personally briefed extensively on every single detail, nugget, tendril of this case. One is actively in court right now, so out of respect for the case, it's probably more appropriate that I stay quiet on that. However, I'm not going to tell people what they want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth, and whether you like it or not is up to you. If there was a big explosive there, right? Given my history as a Secret Service agent and my personal friendship as a director does with the president, give me one logical, sensible reason we would not have. If you can think of one, there isn't. There in some of these cases, the there you're looking for is not there. And I know people. I get it. I understand. It's not there. If it was there, we would have told you.
So he's saying that there's no there. Now, the reason why he's going this far is they've now announced publicly, like the Epstein investigation, they have ended and closed the investigation into Thomas Crooks and his assassination attempt on Trump. And they're exonerating the entire Secret Service. They're saying, no, nobody worked with Crooks. Nobody colluded with Crooks. Nobody deliberately turned a blind eye regarding Crooks. That this was like Lee Harvey Oswald. This was a lone gunman. And how he managed to get this close, it was all literally flukes and coincidences and luck. And so, again, they're trying to ram the lone gunman theory down our throat. Now, I just want to read to you, this is the response that came from one of Trump's former spokespeople, Liz Harrington. And she slammed Bongino. She's very upset. And this is what she said on X. I'm sorry. The investigation into July 13, the Butler assassination attempt, is closed. Who were you briefed by? The people who came in, hosed down the crime scene, cremated the body, stonewalled congressional investigators, and lawyered up the family? There is a there because we know nothing about Thomas Crooks or who he was talking to. If this is true, they need to come out with everything they know about why and how a 20-year-old was able to pull that off. The former FBI director just called for another hit on President Trump. We must get serious about what is going on. So she's basically saying it's BS that Bongino is lying about what happened in Butler. Your reaction, Heather?
I did watch the interview. I think that I just think that there's more to this.
I hope you're right. 617-266-6868 if you want to be part of the show. Okay, just super quick. So now they're telling us that the official investigation into the assassination attempt on Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania is closed. And that Thomas Crooks, the gunman, acted completely alone. And as they're putting it now, there's no there. Now, first of all, how do you explain the FBI on the scene so quickly, literally, as Liz Harrington put it, hosing down the crime scene? Within 2 hours, the whole crime scene was completely cleaned. Why? That's unheard of. Why? Frankly, it's negligence. I mean, you want to talk about abuse of power. You're cleaning up a crime scene on the attempted assassination of the leading presidential candidate and a former president? Okay, that's number one. But let that one go. How does a 20-year-old punk get on the roof of a building 450 feet away from a former president, and again, the leading presidential candidate, and is spotted by numerous witnesses who are telling Secret Service agents, shooter on the roof. And they let Trump get on the stage, knowing all of this? He's able to come in and take a drone and fly over the entire field, taking aerial footage several hours before Trump gets on that stage. And nobody saw anything? As I said earlier, you've got another Secret Service agent, a sniper, literally 40 feet away from Crooks as he's bear crawling on the roof. And the crowd is saying, shooter, shooter, shooter. And nothing happens. He parks a car full of explosives right there near the rally, undetected, nothing happens. And even after he's spotted, even after he's detected, even after the Secret Service is told repeatedly, shooter, 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 he gets 8 shots off. Not 1, not 2. He got 8 shots off. And on top of all of that, I could go on and on. I'm just skimming the surface here. Okay? In terms of the breakdown, the corruption, to me, there was clearly somebody complicit. There's no way. This guy's going to take a gun and just stroll onto the roof. And everyone's like, shooter, shooter, shooter. And like, wow. Okay, the president's got to go on the stage. Put him on the stage. And then, notice, nothing on his motivation. Nothing. So, what drove him? What was his ideology? Why was he trying to kill the president? Who did he talk to? Who did he communicate with? They're telling us nothing. It's a complete blackout. What was his social? What did he say on social media? What was it? They scrubbed his social media. What was he saying on the internet? It's as if nothing happened. It's like, remember that notorious shooting in Las Vegas years ago? And how many dozens and dozens were massacred at a country music festival? And the FBI came in and they just swept that thing right under the rug, baby. The same thing is happening now. And they're peddling the same thing like the Kennedy assassination. Lone gunmen, don't ask too many questions. So something's going on. It's 2 investigations that they're telling us is closed, and they're accepting the complete, which is an obvious BS narrative. It's a lie that the FBI and the deep state have been peddling. And by the way, you have a federal government under Biden, politicized, FBI raiding Trump's home, guns drawn, shoot to kill orders. A bureaucracy hell-bent on getting rid of Donald Trump. And all of a sudden now, they want us to believe this fantasy? He just got a gun. He just... and by the way, identified by Secret Service an hour before the shooting as being suspicious. They literally photographed him and said, he's suspicious. Watch him. Talk to him. Somebody needs to interview him. And there's no there. Let's just move along. Nothing to see here. Oh, come on. Come on. Come on. Dane in South Dakota. Thanks for holding, Dane, and welcome.
Yes, Jeff. I'm 72 years old. I was a black op for the CIA field agent in South.
This is incredible. Like, I mean, you said black ops CIA, and your voice, it became like a computer. Like, when you're like when you're holding someone hostage, you're calling them on the phone to ask for a ransom. I mean, it's just... Anyway, Dane, let's see if we can reestablish a better connection. Dane, are you talking like a normal human being? Dane, are you... No, Dane, you're still like you're holding someone hostage. Dane, I promise we're going to come back to you, okay? You want to try the third time? All right. Dane, hopefully the third time is the charm. Go.
Speakerphone.
All right, Dane, you're sounding much better. Go ahead.
Yes, Jeff. So, like I was saying, I'm 72 years old. I was a black op for the CIA field agent in Southeast Asia and then the Golden Triangle in 1980. I know this world, okay? The deep state / CIA still has a license to kill since 1947, Jeff. The Mafia had Murder, Inc. The CIA is a legal Murder, Inc. They can kill or threaten anyone they want in this world they want. President Trump, okay, doesn't have a death wish. However, he doesn't fear death. He only fears God. And that's why the divine hand of God protects President Trump. Okay, he has now survived 2 planned assassinations attempt on his life. Okay, you got to ask why. And that reason I prior gave you is why. There's a man out there. I want you to take this name. I hope you can interview him. His name is James File. He wrote a book. He's still living. Primary target on the JFK assassination. He shows you the 2 worlds of the CIA and the Mafia and how they work together. I was part of that world too. I lived in Chicago, born and raised. I knew the outfit, they called them, the Mafia in Chicago. I also went to Southeast Asia with the CIA agent, okay? I'm not like Bob, who says, I have a roommate, no names. I can tell you who the CIA agent was. I can give you his name because now he's dead. Steve Lentz, okay? I went over there with him in 1980. He showed me that real world. It was frightening, okay? Another name, Bill Young. He was sent over there to kill Bill Young. Now, you can look up Bill Young in the New York Times, 1971. There's an article about Bill Young. So I'm giving real names, real people. Both of them are dead, so I give their names. The people that are still living, I won't. But, of course, James Files, okay, still living. He's very sick. They want to give him a pardon so he can testify in front of Congress. But they're afraid to because he'll expose the CIA for who they are, okay? And I'm telling you, you can ask me, Jeff, any question you want. I'll give you the truth.
Well,
and the
Dane,
facts.
look, because you've been a regular caller over many years. You're, to me, one of the pillars of Kuhner country. I'll never forget one of our big rallies, how you literally flew from South Dakota to show your support. So I believe you, not 100, but 1,000%. Dane, I've got about a minute before Dr. Grace comes on the air for her regular hit. So I've got to ask you, do you think Epstein was murdered, or do you think he committed suicide? And if he was murdered, why are Kash Patel and Dan Bongino lying? What's your theory?
He was murdered. It has the CIA prints all over it, the deep state, and I'll tell you why. They won't go after Kash Patel or Bongino. They will go after his family. That is their modus of operation. Okay, they go after the family, the loved ones, just like you said, Jeff. You would back down if they went after your family. I'm a single man. I've never been married. I have no kids. They can come after me. I'm like President Trump. I don't fear death. I fear God. But if they came through my door, they would meet a hail of bullets trying to kill me. I'd go down that way. I don't fear death. I only fear God. And that is why he never, ever killed himself. He killed himself. He never committed suicide. It's the biggest bunch of BS you ever heard. And your wife has a right-on article. She's dead on, 1,000% right, as you say, Jeff. So this is this world we live in. The only thing that's saving us is the divine hand of God. Those who fear God stay alive. Those who fear the government go dead.
Well, you're right, Dane. You're absolutely right. Look, again, thank you for your service, and God bless you, Dane. Okay, and speaking of Grace, she's got an absolutely outstanding column today. I'm urging all of you, please, you got to read it. It's called Questions on Death of Epstein Remain. It's directly related to the comments made by Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. You can read it on wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in National ER. It's where all the columns are. You just click right there, and there it is. Grace Vuoto, Dr. Grace, putting liberals in their place. Full disclosure, my better half, my wonderful wife, Grace, again, congratulations on an outstanding column. I've got to ask you right out of the gate, did Jeffrey Epstein commit suicide? And why did Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, why are they saying he killed himself?
Well, Jeff, I think that any amateur sleuth that looks at the evidence will say he definitely did not commit suicide. None of his behavior leading up to that night indicated that he was going to commit suicide. And if you look at FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino, their interview was supposed to be about restoring the credibility of the FBI. That's what they were saying during that interview. Our mission is to restore the credibility. And yet, they blew the credibility. They're not doing a good job. And I'll tell you what, Maria Bartiromo, all she needed to do was follow up with more questions, because it looks like Patel and Dan Bongino haven't done anything on the case. Look at the statements that they made in the interview. Patel simply said, I know, based on my years of experience, this was a suicide. So he's going on his credentials. That's a red flag to me. Talk to me about the details of the case. And then Bongino's statement, I have seen the whole file, he killed himself. That's it? My reaction was, that's it? One is going on credentials. The other is going on, I read the file. That's it? You guys are there to investigate. And Maria Bartiromo should have just followed up with a ton of questions. Well, excuse me. Let me ask you this. The brother did an experiment with the bed sheet. He purchased the same bed sheet, and he tried to see if it would hold. The bed sheet tore. Did you guys conduct a similar experiment? Number two, did you guys interview once again all the cellmates on the floor? Did you guys speak to the psychologist who said he was not suicidal because then he was taken off of suicide watch? Did anybody interview the cellmates who received the money that Epstein gave them for protection? if you look at Epstein's behavior before that night, he was trying frantically to save his life. So first of all, you don't even have the mindset of a man that's going to commit suicide. Why was he even put on suicide watch to begin with? Then why was he taken off suicide watch? So it doesn't look like Maria Bartiromo asked any of the specific questions, nor do they have any information on what they have done since they got into those roles.
Grace, what about, and you know this almost better than anybody because you've been researching this, conveniently, the cameras right on his cell, and suddenly they malfunction. Suddenly they don't work. The 2 security guards that were there to watch his cell in particular specifically, every half an hour, keep making a check, and suddenly they both fell asleep, both of them. The forensic pathologist, and you quote them, these experts, saying there's no way in hell that you look at the bones that were broken inside his neck. There is no way that this could be done from a hanging. This had all of the traits of a strangulation, that he was murdered. So the forensics, the coincidences, it's almost mathematically impossible that he killed himself. Am I wrong?
Dead right. And then how many events had to go that way? How many things had to, quote unquote, go wrong? So he was taken off suicide watch, but then a cellmate was required to be with him that night. Shazam, no cellmate that night. Shazam, no, the guards don't do their stated procedure. The cameras don't work. And then guess what? One of the questions that family members are asking is, well, what about the pictures of him at the moment that he's dead? Do we have that? No. They didn't follow the procedures that a jail would follow if somebody is found dead in the cell. It's supposed to be treated as a crime scene, and it wasn't treated as a crime scene. So you're telling me that this is one of the highest profile cases in the world and, in our nation. And the moment he's found dead, they don't take pictures. There are just too many things that weren't done that are standard procedure that raise a lot of red flags. And Patel and Bongino should be asking these questions, even better questions than I can ask, because they're the so-called professionals. And they obviously didn't do their work. To me, they look like, the way I catch Ava. Ava, did you just work out? Yeah, I did. Okay, what'd you do? There's no specifics. Did you lift weights? Did you run? What'd you do? Oh, sorry. I tell you the truth. I just sang the whole time. This is how I feel this is. Where are the specifics? Basically, they haven't done anything. And you've got to think about this. To all those who are saying there's some kind of a master strategy, there isn't. Because the very interview was supposed to be about setting a new tone and having all of us trust the FBI again. And if they truly had an ongoing investigation, they would have told us, this is what we've done so far. And, we're looking into it. Or we can't comment on an ongoing investigation. That's usually what the FBI does. They only say it's closed when it's actually closed. So I don't buy this, latitude that people are trying to give them.
Grace, so why then? Let's just take it all the way to the end now. Why would Kash Patel, why would Dan Bongino, why would they parrot the FBI deep state line? And why would they lie so brazenly like this?
Well, look, Jeff, you've got one of the victims, Virginia Giuffre, who ends up so-called committing suicide. Her father doesn't believe it. Another Epstein victim, Carolyn Andriano, she so-called died of an accidental overdose. The mother doesn't believe it. So now we've got multiple suicides, so-called, of everybody involved in this. And Bongino and Patel aren't even telling us, oh, you know what? Okay, let's just say, for argument's sake, it was a suicide, but we are pursuing everybody we know in those videos that was involved in the pedophile ring, everybody we know in the documents that was involved. We're looking into all of them. No, nothing, zero. They just want to put the kibosh on it. And the question that you're asking is the key question. Why are they putting the kibosh on it? To me, my first guess is they're being threatened, and they're just caving to the threats. It's just too scary. I think all three of them are under threat, under severe threat. Patel, Bongino, and Bondi. And if you look at the difference between those who are really effective in the Trump administration, like Holman, you can just take one look at him. There's nothing you can say to this guy that is going to stop him from doing his job. There is no threat on earth that is going to stop him, just like Donald Trump. That's what people who can't be threatened and bullied look like. These three, they don't look like that.
Grace, so your final paragraph, you say maybe it's time for Patel and Bongino to resign. If they are being threatened, if they've caved or capitulated to the pressure, then they should do the honorable thing, step down and make way for somebody, a pit bull, not a media poodle, but a pit bull who will not be intimidated, who will not be threatened, who will not back down. Is that what you want to see happen?
That's what I want to see. That's just basic honesty. Listen, I'm an analyst. I'm telling you what's going on, but I couldn't do that job. And knowing that I couldn't do their job, I would not put myself in that position. Very few people can do what I'm asking them to do, but just be honest. If it's not you, get out of the way.
Do you think I could do the job?
You're really tough, Jeff, yes.
See, I don't think I could do the job.
I believe in you, Jeff.
No, you and the kids, that's my Achilles heel, and they would use that against me. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, okay, but let that go.
Well, the point is this. We all have to assess honestly when we're asked such a key and patriotic position. Can we resist all the pressures, all the temptations, all the fears, all the terror that will go with that position? I would immediately say, it's not going to be me, not at this time in my life. I would just say the truth. And I think it's up to them to do that so that they can make way for somebody like a Tom Holman, who we know is the Iron Man.
We've got about a minute left. Let me just play devil's advocate for a second. What if this is the best that Trump can do? When what I mean by that is, okay, I've got Holman, but not everybody's Holman. Not everybody's me. You know, you mentioned that these are two that just can't be threatened, can't be intimidated, and they're just not going to back down. These are not, they're not a dime a dozen. As you put it, these are very rare people. And I need people that I know. I need people that I can trust. I need people who are loyal. So the pool that I can pick from is limited. And for all their flaws, this is the best that I can get as AG, as the FBI director, and as the deputy. 30 seconds. What say you?
Jeff, this is the United States of America. This is not the best. Trump vowed to win and win on all fronts. And we have the toughest of the toughest people out there. This is a country that is a superpower, that has won world wars, that has dominated the globe. We've got a ton of people who are iron tough like Holman, and they're the ones that need to be appointed to these positions.
Dr. Grace putting liberals in their place. Grace Vuoto. Okay, let me ask all of you. I think this is the ultimate log now to throw on the fire. I think it's clearly obvious now that the CIA has grown way too big, way too strong, way too powerful. Same thing with the FBI. It is riddled with corruption. It has become weaponized, politicized from A to Z. You could go on, the NSA. I mean, there's so many of them, these three-letter agencies. Is it time to start abolishing these agencies? In other words, I go back to one of my original texts that I read, 3 hours ago on the show, which is, it's not a question of personnel anymore. It doesn't matter who you put at the top of the CIA or the FBI or the Secret Service or whatever. Just pick your department. They're so big, so powerful that they almost are like creatures in their own right. That the answer now is just less government. Period. The government has just gotten too big, too wealthy, too powerful, too corrupt, too out of control. And no one now can just rein it in. And, many people point out, notice, we have all of these alphabet agencies. But in the past, we used to win our wars. Now we don't win our wars. In the past, we were a much freer country. So we've given up so many of our rights and civil liberties supposedly for greater security. and we're getting less security and less freedom. And maybe it's time to just start to burn these agencies to the ground. Cut them and get rid of them and abolish them. I'm just throwing it out there. 617-266-6868. Now, as for Jeffrey Epstein, do you believe he killed himself or do you believe he was murdered? And Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, have they lost your trust? Do you believe they are lying? Or do you think there is a grand strategy involved? Stay patient. This will all make sense in a few months. Skippy in South Boston. Thanks for holding, Skippy, and welcome.
Hello, Jeff.
Hi, Skippy.
Yeah, I think he was murdered. Helen Keller, she could figure this one out quicker. That these people would say he killed himself. That's crazy. But getting back to that fellow Rob from Dedham, that guy, as soon as he called and he said, "Oh, you sitting down," like a melodramatic, like he was going to rock your world with this news. He gave you nothing. All he did was build up a resume of this lawyer who I don't even know if he knows him or not. But since 50 years ago, this guy's been the lawyer from everything from the mafia to Judas and everything else in between. And whenever you hit him with the particulars, yeah, but what about the protocol that was not followed through with the suicide watch? You named each, and he just pushed that out. And even the forensic guy, oh, they make mistakes too. I said, this guy, he talks about, are you sitting down? Well, he ought to be sitting down, Jeff, because he was full of crap. He had no idea what he was talking about.
Well, and Skippy, the thing is, this friend of his is the lawyer for Ghislaine Maxwell. Well, I mean, come on. Ghislaine Maxwell was Jeffrey Epstein's enabler. I mean, she got the girls. She got the children. She set up the appointments. She had the black book. There she was. She was his top accomplice. So obviously he's going to go on and say that it was suicide. Of course, that's what the lawyer's going to say. This lawyer's not going to say, Ghislaine Maxwell's, the person that was basically, she was, soliciting, procuring children for was murdered. They got to stick with the suicide narrative, or else Ghislaine Maxwell herself is going to be in big trouble. So the lawyer has an interest in saying it was a suicide. That's why I'm like, now the only thing that I found, how do I say this, a bit startling was, because, Rob has called over many years. I've met him a few times. He strikes me as a, very honest guy, straight shooter. It's when he said, no, Jeff, I believe him. And this was like, look, these are some things you just don't want to know. In other words, threats are flying. We're in very dangerous territory. The less you know, the better. And the only reason why Skippy, I think he was clearly murdered. Don't get me wrong. But that's the same sense I got when I look in the faces of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. I urge everybody, look at the interview. They don't look to me like people are like, hey, I'm setting the record straight. A, B, and C, here's why. No, they're looking away. They're looking down. They got a nervous tick on their face. They look scared. Someone got to them, or something is going on, or they're being told to say something that they don't believe. But I don't look at these two and say, oh yeah, no, they're speaking from the heart. I see the exact opposite. Final word to you, Skippy.
Well, Jeff, if they are compromised, and Trump has to sit down and figure out, all right, are you going to be putting a web now for every other issue? We say they might have to just bypass this whole thing with that island stuff with what was going on there, and go on to all the other things that they're supposed to be going after. Because it might be in football. We can't make this play. We're going to have to we'll just go to our next plan of action. All these other ventures we have to get into. Because if they're compromising on this, are they going to be compromised on something else?
Well, you nailed it, Skippy. When you're caught lying, then I don't believe you. And if I don't believe you, I don't trust you. And if I don't trust you, to me, how can I believe anything you say going into the future? That's why, look, if I were advising them, I would just say, it's an ongoing investigation. We're not saying anything more. That's all. That's all they had to say. Can't talk about it. Very sensitive. And when we know something definitive, we'll let you know. But instead, they're basically telling us, toe the deep state line. After both of them, you see, it's not like they're just, Joe Sixpack. These are two people who made their careers out of challenging the deep state. These are two people who said openly, repeatedly, Epstein was murdered. And we're going to get to the bottom of it. What happened in Butler, Pennsylvania was clearly part of an inside job. All right, we got a couple lines open if you want to be part of the show. 617-266-6868. 617-266-6868. Now, regarding Thomas Crooks, the would-be assassin of President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. Notice we know hardly anything about him. Again, to me, this is unbelievable. We know hardly anything about him. Why did he try to kill President Trump? What was his social media like? Who was he in contact with? Who was he talking to? Who was he communicating with? I mean, I could go on and on and on. We know absolutely nothing. Now, why is that? And this is Caitlin on Messenger, and I think she makes an absolutely phenomenal point. Jeff, we knew more about the insurance company CEO shooter, Luigi Mangione, within 24 hours. We knew his entire life. I'm like, that's true. You're completely right. This guy who came within a millimeter of assassinating the leading presidential candidate at the time, a former president of the United States, and most people know hardly nothing about him. And that's because the Secret Service and the FBI, au contraire, Akash Patel and Dan Bongino, have been deliberately sweeping things under the rug. There's no question that there's a cleanup going on. And they're telling us there's no there? Come on, seriously, let's get serious. Now, look, many of you are asking a very obvious question. They know what's in these videos and in these tapes. They can see these powerful people that are molesting and having inappropriate relations. Okay, it's a family show. Having inappropriate relations with underage girls and children. Why aren't there arrests being made? Forget releasing it to the public for a second. Why aren't arrests being made? They've had these tapes now for over 5 years. Not one person outside of Ghislaine Maxwell, who was his enabler, outside of that, no one else has been arrested. No one else has gone to jail. Why is that? And the witnesses that helped put Ghislaine Maxwell in prison, who said, I can tell you other powerful people that we were there. They're naming names. Suddenly now they're all conveniently dying of suicide. So when they throw out Bill Gates, when they throw out Bill Clinton, when they start throwing these names left, right, and center, suddenly they end up dead. But just think about it. 5 years and counting. No one in those videos, it's on tape, for God's sake. He was blackmailing them. He had cameras in every single room, including the bathroom. In other words, if you were molesting a child or an underage or having sex with an underage girl, he had you on tape. He had you 6 ways to Sunday. Not one person has been arrested. Again, outside of Ghislaine Maxwell. There's a cover-up. There's an obvious cover-up taking place. Now, very quickly, one last text, and I want to go back to the phone lines. This is from 603, and I know 603. So I trust 603, and I trust this very, very, I believe him, and I trust him very much. And that's why I'm giving this a lot of play on the air now. About the shooting in Butler, that there was an obvious cover-up by the Secret Service and the FBI. Jeff, I am close personal friends with a publicly known private investigator in Pennsylvania whose firm was hired by the Trump family to conduct a thorough and extensive boots-on-the-ground investigation into the assassination attempt in Butler, PA. This investigation went on for months. I have personally been briefed on the extensive evidence that was uncovered, as well as the interference operations that were carried out by local, county, state, and federal officials to thwart and obstruct the private investigators involved. And I can tell you firsthand that the official statements made by Kash Patel and Dan Bongino do not, and not is in caps, comport with the investigation's findings to which I'm referring to. I think it's pretty obvious. That's what I mean. We're being lied to. And to me, I'm just sick and tired of being lied to. Even if you're being threatened, even if you want to play three-dimensional chess, however you want to, look at it, don't lie. Once you lie, man, you got no credibility left. Am I wrong? Tim in the great state of South Carolina. Thanks for holding, Tim, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. As always, thanks for having me again.
My pleasure,
to answer
Tim.
your question, and I say this respectfully, to answer your question, yes, you're wrong. Okay? The expression on their faces during the interview is called discipline and restraint. Okay? I'm not going to be the most popular caller this morning, but I have to take exception to everyone's take on this, including Dr. Grace. Okay? We are in a war. Okay? There are tactics involved. You have to lull the enemy to sleep. You never tell the enemy what you're doing or what you're about to do. That is just, it's not how things work. There is no way that those two guys can just get on national TV and just tell people what's going on and tell people the truth. They can't do that, Jeff. That's wrong. It's not right.
Sorry, Tim.
Furthermore,
No, Tim, I promise I'll give you all the time in the world. And I'm very happy you called, and I'm very happy you're giving another side, okay? So please don't take this that I'm being hostile, quite the contrary. But Tim, I don't quite understand. It's the wrong thing to tell the truth? Like, I don't follow you there.
no, obviously it's not the wrong thing to tell the truth. But in their positions and in the war that we're in, everyone's watching and listening to them, including the enemy. You can't just go on TV, Jeff, and just be outright truthful to us. You can't. You have to remember, for those of your callers out there who are following this, okay, President Trump communicates with us. How does he do it? He does it on Truth Social, okay? For anyone out there who is aware, he communicated with us this past weekend on Truth Social. He put out 3 truths that were then relayed over to X, okay? They were very explicit. One of them was a video, and the crux of that video was suicide. It talked about all of the victims, or a partial list of the victims of Hillary, okay? President Trump also put out a truth. Don't worry, I'm going to tie this all together. But he also put out a truth. He was asking us to re-truth if there should be military tribunals, okay? He's speaking to us, okay? So what you're seeing here with Bongino and Patel, yes, you're getting a mixed message. You're getting a completely different message, okay? You have to understand, everyone needs to understand the enemy is watching, the enemy is listening. Jeff, the enemy is ruthless. If there's anything we've observed throughout these last several years, is how ruthless they are. They will kill, they will maim, they will murder, they'll do it all. They will try to throw someone in prison for the rest of his life, okay? Patel and Bongino are...
Tim, can you do me a favor? I want you to hang on. Okay, let's go right back to Tim in South Carolina. Tim, so let me just ask you, I understand where you're coming from, The enemy is devious. The enemy is ruthless. The enemy is cunning. The enemy goes for the jugular. So they got to be playing three-dimensional chess. It's got to be strategic. They can't just blurt stuff out and telegraph every move. I hear you, Tim. Why not just say it's an ongoing investigation and leave it at that? What's your answer to that?
Because you have to put out, to use their terminology, misinformation and disinformation. You have to confuse and confound. If they were to say it's an ongoing investigation, we're not going to comment any further, that's not really throwing them off. That's not lulling them to sleep, so to speak. But if you put out a completely different narrative, in other words, if you use their tactics they've used over the years, it can be constructive when you're in a war. The answer to your second question about the Epstein files is I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know why they're keeping that still. But I think there's way too much criticism of Patel and Bongino right now. They have been victims of the deep state. If you were listening to them, they've had podcasts. They've been special guests on shows, and they've been interviewed several times leading up to the election. Obviously we know government gangsters. They're coming for them. They are. There is no question in my mind. They are two believable people, if you will.
Oh, I hope you're right, Tim. I really hope you're right. Tim, really. Look, well, I mean, we're going to follow this story, obviously. They are promising arrests in the summer. They have said that, both of them, that big things are going to happen in the summer. So, summer is only a couple of months away. So actually it's right around the corner. But I mean, I'm thinking they're looking at July, August in terms of their timeline. So Tim, I really hope you're right. And fingers crossed. Tim, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. Excellent call. Rick in Cambridge. Thanks for holding, Rick, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Good. How are you, Rick?
Good. Listen, there was a famous billionaire who was also a spy for many, many, many years. And he just happened to be killed by the people he was spying for. And he just happened to be the father of Ghislaine Maxwell. And he worked for Israel.
Hey, Robert Maxwell. No, I know. And by the way, big supporter of the European Union and a socialist through and through. But let that go, Rick. Please keep going.
Don't you think that's Epstein must have been working for them? I mean, obviously, that's why nobody will say anything.
Well, Rick, what I've heard is, and you tell me if you agree or disagree, that they say he was both a CIA asset and a Mossad asset, that he was working for both the CIA and Mossad. What say you?
Possibly, but I mean, obviously, it's similar to the Liberty incident. Nobody's saying anything, so people need to get online and do some research.
Rick, do you think he was murdered?
Absolutely, just like Robert Maxwell.
Interesting. Rick, thank you. I appreciate it. Very good call. Connor in the great state of Florida. Thanks for holding, Connor, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi,
Great,
Connor.
To have a chance to speak with you. Haven't been able to get through in the past, but really happy that I can speak with you today. So, when I was first calling, I was picking up on the heels of Grace's comment, and I was thinking, I'm 100% in agreement with her. If you can't do the job, then get out of the way. And as I've had some time to kind of, sit on hold and listen to the other callers, it is multi-layered. I mean, you have a situation where there is information that we just don't have access to, and they know things that we don't, and they may be in positions where they feel threatened. And on the one hand, you can say, well, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. But on the other hand, that's really hard to do because they could also be doing a lot of great things behind the scenes, which I believe they are. But this one thing they can't push the needle on further than, what they've done so far. I'm talking about Epstein and the Trump assassination attempt in Butler. And so, there's this kind of give and take going off of, the couple callers that you've had before me. But with that said, what is the threshold until we say we can't heal as a nation if we don't have full transparency from our leadership and the institutions within our government. This is dealing in terms of Epstein with children. It's the most demonic, disgusting thing that you could possibly do. And we all know the story of Epstein. And the other thing, too, is that we're kind of sitting here, it quacks like a duck and it walks like a duck, but we're not supposed to really say it's a duck. We all know that he probably was involved with Mossad. He probably was involved with CIA. That's the crux of it.
Connor, look, I think it's a great way to end the show. Really great call. Look, I think the deep state had their tentacles in Epstein. They were using Epstein just like he was using them. And I think that's why everybody's trying to bury this, or there's so much pressure to try to bury it. And I think the connections to Israel and Mossad are obvious. And I think that's why the stakes are so high. And that's why everybody is so afraid. And on that note, and I'm not letting this story go, I promise. Bye-bye.